Hey everyone, another day and another reason to smile because I'm out in the shop turning some wrenches on the CRF 450. So I still have quite a bit left to do on this bike, but a good chunk of today's video will involve this carburetor. It is quite the process pulling these things apart, cleaning them up, and putting them back together. So once that's finished up, I'm going to move on to pulling these radiators off, as well as a few things on this front end. And I'm actually going to see if I can straighten out this right radiator. I don't know about that though. It's pretty tacoed. What do you guys think? Is it fixable? For those of you wondering about the TTR 125 back here in the corner, I am still waiting on some parts for it, but as soon as those things show up, I'll be making a video putting it back together and hopefully doing some riding out here on the pit bike track. So obviously the first step with this carburetor is to take it all apart. I'm going to start by pulling off these hoses and then move on to the throttle assembly. So the cover's coming off along with the pulley and the throttle slide. Next up, I've got the choke, the hot start, the float bowl, and everything inside of it, including the floats and the jets. And I should probably mention, it is not a good idea to pull off this throttle position sensor right here. The hassle of having to reset it just for the sake of cleaning is not really worth it. I went to go pull out the screw and it's pretty stripped. So to fix that, I've got this small set of vice grips that work really well on small screws like this. And there's another strip screw right here too. You guys ready to see the inside of this carburetor? Nothing too special. So what I'm pulling off right now is the main jet. This is the jet that controls half to full throttle. And then I'm gonna move on to the pilot jet. The pilot jet is right down here. Got one more jet back here too. So that's it for the jets. Now I'm just gonna pull off the floats and the needle valve. So to remove this pin, I just tap on the floats a little bit and the pin starts sliding out. Once you can grab the pin with your fingers, just pull it out, floats slide right out. One last thing I'm going to pull off this carburetor is the fuel screw. Just want to make sure everything inside is intact. The spring and the O-ring and all the washers. So we've got spring on it. There's an O-ring and a little washer on the end. Surprisingly, these pieces are pretty critical. If you're missing that little O-ring, the bike will actually have an air leak and it won't quite run the same. Alright, one last thing to take apart, this accelerator pump. So I'm taking a look at this accelerator pump diaphragm and it's actually got some damage around the edge here. The rubber is starting to eat away, so I'm gonna have to order up a new one of these, along with some new flip-hole screws. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna get some new O-rings as well. This is what a Kian FCR looks like, completely disassembled. There is quite a lot of parts in here just for a carburetor. Time to give these parts a makeover. Gonna require some meticulous scrubbing though. Simply amazing what a little scrubbing will do. This carburetor is looking so prime now. Just gonna blow it off with some compressed air and move on to all the smaller parts. Alright, every piece of the carburetor is now cleaned up and this stuff looks amazing. One more thing to check out is these jets. Just gonna make sure that they're free and clear. There's no obstructions in the hole. So here's the pilot. That one looks good to go. And we've got the main. That one's also clear. And the last jet right here. That one is fine as well. Sweet. So now it's on to ordering some parts. I've got to replace this diaphragm, some football screws, and then these little O-rings. I'm gonna go ahead and replace those as well. So for OEM parts, I always use Rocky Mountain. Their shipping is super fast and they've got pretty good prices. So I'm just gonna select 03 CRF 450, click over to carburetor, and it pulls up the fish or the diagram here. And so first thing I'm going to check out is the accelerator pump diaphragm. So that is this part right here, but it looks like they sell it as a whole kit. So the cover, the spring, the seals, and the diaphragm. So that's number 11. Scroll down, that is $18. Add that to the cart, and then I've got some screws as well that I'll need. So that is number 39. Alright, that's all I need. Parts have been ordered, money has been spent, and when this stuff shows up in a few days, I am going to have a fresh ass carburetor. If anyone from Rocky Mountain is watching this, you need to get in contact with me. I order way too much through you guys. While I'm waiting on parts, I'm going to tidy up this carburetor and then move on to pulling off these radiators. I think it is time to pick a winner for this number plate. So the answer is, I run a Pro Circuit R304 silencer. Oh, this bike is dirty. Need to wash it. Anyways, I'm gonna cruise over the computer and pick a winner. Alright, I'm on the video where I did the giveaway, and I'm just gonna load up all these comments. There is a crap ton of them. There's like over 500, I believe. So it might take a bit. So I believe that is all the comments. Looks like it. I'm just gonna randomly pick one. So using the scroll on the side of the screen here, I'm just gonna go up and down a bunch, kind of randomly, just drop it wherever. And whoever's comment is at the top when I drop it, you are the winner. And to win, you have to say Pro Circuit or R304, something along those lines. I'm going up and down, all over the place. Let's drop it in 3, 2, 1. Alright, we got a winner right here. He said the best, R304 Shorty. So that's good enough. Scroll up, see who it is. Content Cop. Gonna give that a like. And Content Cop, I am gonna need your email address so I can send this number plate over to you. Congrats, dude. Got the number plate all cleaned up. Just gonna give it a John Hancock, and she's off to a new home. Alright folks, on to pulling off these radiators and hoses. The radiators are off the bike, and now comes the real test. Will this radiator straighten out? I don't know, it's pretty tweaked, but it's worth a shot. So I'm gonna try to use the softest materials I can on this radiator. I've got a wood block, the edge of this card is plastic, and a soft hammer. Let's go for it. So I'm just switching from one side to the other, trying to bend this back as evenly as possible. Alright, so this thing is straightening out pretty good, but it still has a tweak from top to bottom. You can see the bottom tank is not level with the top tank. Before I do any more straightening, I'm gonna have to get this radiator level. To straighten this radiator out from top to bottom, I'm gonna have to put it in a vise. That way I can get some leverage on it. And I'm gonna put some wood blocks in here to keep the vise from chewing up the radiator. So this is how I have the radiator mounted in the vise. Got a piece of wood on either side. And so I'm just gonna grab the top of the radiator right here at the tank and give it a little twist, and it should straighten out. After some twisting, the radiator came out pretty straight. Look how parallel the top and bottom tanks are. Pretty amazing how much aluminum can bend without cracking. It's really malleable. So the issue we have now is the bottom tank and the top tank are not lined up with each other. So if you look at this right here, this is not a 90-degree angle. Neither are any four corners. So the top tank is gonna have to be shifted over. So how I'm gonna accomplish this is clamping the bottom of the radiator in the vise and pounding on the top edge. And this should shift the whole radiator over and get it straightened out. All right, the radiator is all clamped in. Just gonna give this corner a little tap with the soft hammer, and it should shift the top tank over to the left. To check if the top and bottom tanks are lined up with each other, I've got the speed square here. I'm gonna put it level with one edge and slide it down. So you can tell it's still a little bit off. Gonna need some more work. For this last little bit, the radiator doesn't wanna stay in place with those wood blocks. So I'm gonna have to clamp it without. Got to be really careful with this. So it looks like it's straightening out pretty good. The speed score tells me this corner is level at least. Check up here. Yeah, it all looks pretty good. Granted, this edge isn't perfectly straight, but for the most part, it looks pretty square. So obviously there's still a little bit of concave here. So now with the radiator square and level top to bottom, it's gonna be a lot easier to straighten this last bit out. Pretty frickin' insane if you ask me. Let me just say, don't hate on it until you try it. Alright, I'm gonna go test these guys for leaks and freshen them up at the same time. So here's how I'm gonna test this radiator for leaks. I've got these rubber plugs. Just gonna push them into the radiator fittings to plug it off and fill it up with water, kind of pressurize it and see if it holds. So the end of this nozzle magically just fits right into the radiator cap fitting. So I'm gonna add water and kind of pressurize it and check if there's any water coming out. So as you can see, this plug came popping off. So that's a good sign. It's holding pressure pretty good. All right, let's take a look at it from the other side. So this radiator is good to go. No leaks at all. Alright, let's test the left radiator now. So obviously this side doesn't have a cap fitting, so I'm gonna have to spray water into this bottom radiator hose fitting. So when you come across a leaky radiator, it'll usually be somewhere along these jackets, or if it's on one of the tanks, the part that they're gonna leak is right on the edge here. So when I'm spraying water in, I'm looking at these areas primarily. And this radiator looks like it's good to go as well. Now it's on to cleaning them up. So for these guys, I'm just gonna drop them into this bucket of mag wheel cleaner. Let them soak for a few minutes and start scrubbing. After a few minutes of soaking, time to get my scrub on. Come on guys, be honest. Who thought this radiator was destined for the junk pile? Oh, finally back over to the bike. Let's rip this front end off, starting at the brakes and front wheel. Before I pull off the caliper though, I'm gonna have to remove these brake line guides. With the brakes off the bike, it's time to separate everything. I'm gonna pull off this lever, the brake line, and the caliper mount. So I've got these little seals that slip over the banjo bolt, and when you thread the bolt back into the caliper or the master cylinder, it seals it off and prevents anything from getting inside during the cleaning process. Brakes are all finished up. Now it's on to the front wheel. Gonna slide out this axle and the wheel can be removed from the bike. But first I gotta loosen up these pinch bolts and the nut, and then the axle will slide out of the wheel. Time to rip off these fork guards. Pretty simple deal for pulling off these forks. Just got 2 pinch bolts up top and 2 pinch bolts on the bottom triple clamp. The last couple of things to pull off for the day are the triple clamps and bar mounts. Look at all these parts that need cleaning. This is where the fun begins. Gonna fill up this basket and drop it into the soak tank. The first couple of things I'm gonna freshen up are the forks. These can be cleaned in the soak tank as well. So on these forks, I go with Scotch-Brite on these upper tubes. And then I've got this little brush here. It's actually a parts washer brush. This works really good for cleaning in tight areas, such as down here on the lug. So that's what I'm using on the lower part of the fork. If I remember right, these fork seals were leaking, but let's make sure of that. As you can see, there's some oil forming on this lower tube, so I'm gonna have to clean these fork seals out. So this is the tool that I use for cleaning out fork seals. This hook goes into the seal and pulls out all the dirt within the seal and reseals it. And I've never had it not work on a fork. This is the tool to have right here. So I'll put the tool at a slight angle and slide it in backwards. Kind of twist it, get it into place. And you want to take a look down inside this gap here. Make sure the cleaner's all the way in there. So when you insert the tool, you're gonna have some oil that's gonna want to come out. So try to clean these seals as quick as you can. Then to reseal the fork, just compress it a few times. And you're gonna have a little bit of oil still coming out. So you're gonna have to compress the fork about 10 to 15 times. So each time you compress it, less and less oil is gonna come out. And eventually, it'll be all sealed up. All right, that looks good to go. Gonna slide this dust seal back on and call it good. So while I'm letting the rest of these parts soak, I'm gonna go post these radiators and forks up on the website. These parts are now available on revivemoto.com, so head over there and check it out. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be seeing you all soon. Later.